Yeah, it's Mindset Cafe, we all about that mindset. Gotta stay focused, never settle for less. It's all in your head, how you think you manifest. So get ready to rise, cause we about to be the best. Gotta switch it up, gotta break the old habits. Get your mind right, turn your dreams into habits. No negative vibes, only positive thoughts.
What is up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Mindset Cafe podcast. It's your boy, Devin, and today we have a special guest. We have Dr. William Attaway. He is a best-selling author, an executive coach, speaker, and the founder of the Catalytic Leadership podcast and program. And, I'm lucky enough to be on his podcast coming up soon, too, so we're going to be able to run it back. So make sure you guys check that episode out when his does drop as well. But with nearly 30 years of hands-on experience in leadership, Dr. William has coached hundreds of high-performing agency owners, executives, entrepreneurs across 6 continents, right? Which is amazing, and would definitely dive into some of that stuff. But with being a leader, we know that there's a lot of things that kind of come with it, right? There's a lot of stress, a lot of things that start to come with those things. So, Dr. William has really focused on, helping those people not burn out, not, get in this state of confusion or stagnation, because that does happen as a business owner and honestly just in life, right? So without further ado, Dr. William, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day.
Devin, thanks so much for having me, man. It's an honor to be on the show.
So I'm excited. So, let's rewind and talk about, your bring up, your childhood to, where you are today. Like, what was that path like?
I grew up outside Birmingham, Alabama, and a typical childhood in a lot of ways. But there were always the challenges and the obstacles. My parents separated and then ultimately got divorced, when I was a teenager, and that creates instability, that creates challenges around the family dynamic. And anybody who's been in that environment knows what I'm talking about. It was around that same season that I had a teacher who saw something in me that I did not see in myself. And at 15 years old, he invited me to attend my first leadership conference. And I had no real interest in the subject, but I thought, well, I'll go check it out. And I went and I listened and I was hooked by the power of leadership and the impact that a great leader can make and the danger of not leading well and the ripples of what that can cause. And now for nearly 40 years, I have been a student of leadership, and for 30 now, a practitioner of it, working with teams myself, leading organizations, leading teams, companies, and then coaching other leaders, helping them to lead effectively, to understand that it all begins between your ears. It begins with your mindset. That's 90% of your success or your failure in leadership.
100%. And so I want to dive into something you just said too, because I think it is so important. And the reason I think it's so important is because everyone idolizes being the leader, right? Being the CEO, sure, being the top person, the team captain, whatever the case may be. But like you said, a great leader can have a huge impact and can do amazing things, but also a bad leader could also have a huge impact and do, crazy things. So what is that difference when you notice, when you were at that conference or what you've learned throughout your years of studying leadership, what is that separation? And can you dive into that subject a little bit more of the deviation of the two?
I think about it in terms of water. You think about a lake, and you think about taking a rock and I chunk the rock into the middle of that lake. What's going to happen? It's going to ripple. The water is going to respond exactly proportionate to the velocity of my throw, right? And the size of the rock. And those ripples are going to move, and they're going to stretch. They're going to touch things that are far away from that rock that the rock did not touch. That's leadership. The ripples of leadership stretch and move far beyond the actual leader. This is why I have chosen to work with and to pour into and invest in leaders. Because when you impact a leader and you help them move from, in some cases, mediocrity or worse to great leadership, to excellence, you're not just affecting one person, because the ripples go so far and they touch so many other people. their immediate family, their team, the rest of the company, their clients, every client they're ever going to serve, every company they're ever going to work for, all from impacting that one leader. That's the power of leadership. That can be for good, or it can be not. A lot of leaders lead for selfish reasons. They lead because they want to build themselves up, build their brand, build their kingdom, if you will. It's all about them.
Mm-hmm.
And the ripples from that stretch just as far.
So what makes a good leader and what makes a bad leader?
I believe great leadership starts with a servant's heart. I believe servant leadership is leadership.
Mm.
I'm not sure you can call anything other than servant leadership, honestly. I heard Patrick Lencioni say this years ago. He said, we talk about servant leadership like there's really any other kind. I think you have to use a different word. I think servant leadership is focused on the people that we are serving. We get to serve as a leader. We get to pour into and impact other people. We get to help them grow and achieve their goals in the pursuit of the goals of the company or the team. That's what you need to do. As a leader, your job is no longer to be the individual contributor. Your job is not to get things done. Your job is to get things done through other people. And the way you do that best is by seeing, how can I help you? How can I pour into you in such a way to maximize your impact?
So what makes a bad leader?
One that's all about themselves. One that is more concerned with their headlines and their highlight reel than anyone else on the team. Someone who is fine if they win, even if that means everybody else doesn't.
I think that's huge, because I mean, the way I kind of view it too is like you said, the servant leader, right? I mean, that's how that's how a great leader is and should be. But also, that, I mean, those kind of leaders don't necessarily call themselves leaders, right? Yeah. Out the gate, like they kind of, they're the ones that kind of get pushed to be team captain, right? Mm-hmm. And obviously, if you open a business, you are the leader, by default. But you got to realize that, like, my job, even with my gym, my franchise, like, my main job is, how can I help you? Like, so my team comes, they present a problem. My job is to solve the problem. That's all, and all it is. And that's where people also don't realize. They see that the title, they see the leadership, all those kind of things. They're like, oh, I want to be that. And it's like, you also got to realize that it comes with a very heavy weight. And that is the stress, the worry of burnout, all those other things, because when things go wrong, a great leader realizes it's their fault.
That's right.
Right. When things go right, they realize it's the team doing well.
That's exactly it.
Right.
That's exactly it.
And that's the biggest thing for me is, like, I learned, I mean, I've always thought that, but never really understood or been able to explain it until I read, I think it was Jocko Willink's The Dichotomy of Leadership. And it's so true. And I think that any leader that leads from the back, that's not a leader. You're a dictator. Yeah. Right. And it's like, no one wants to work for that. Everyone remembers that one boss that they had that they're like, I'll never be that person. Right. So don't be that person. Right. So, I mean, what really inspired you from that conference? Because obviously that sounded, or that, that seminar, because I mean, that sounded like it kind of set a pivot in your journey, or whatever your journey could have been. What was that light bulb at that conference for you?
I think it was truly a catalytic moment in my life, because it was at that moment that I realized the power of an individual to impact far beyond themselves. You think about it was actually at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, is where the conference was. So you think about what happened at Valley Forge. You think about what George Washington accomplished there, right? You look at that, and when they came to Valley Forge, they were not coming off of a victory. They were not coming off of, hey, things are riding high. We've got all the resources we need. We're hitting every KPI and objective. None of that. Everything was going south. How did he lead in circumstances not of his choosing? How did he lead in moments of crisis? And I think it was in that context, in that setting, that really became real to me for the first time, that I understood that leadership is not about the title. It's not about the perks. It's not about the trappings.
Mm-hmm.
It's about that. It's about leading in adversity, leading through crisis, knowing that there's another side to it.
No, definitely. Not gonna lie, I don't know what the Valley of Forge is, but as you started explaining it, I was like, oh, I think I know where we're going with this. But honestly, everything that you said though, it does resonate with things that I've experienced, and I know other leaders have, because when things are, especially we'll say with business, when things are going rough, it's like you can start to shift the blame. Right. And the one thing in my company is I don't accept excuses. Right. The reason I don't accept excuses is because that means you haven't taken responsibility for the mistake. I accept mistakes all day long, but you need to own your mistake so that we can learn from it. Right. Because believe me, I make probably the most amount of mistakes. Right. And it's like, you made the mistake. Now what? Right. You can't just sit in that mistake. Now you need to find the solution. What is the solution? Right. So for even for our team though, what you're saying, it kind of made me think about even how we have a hierarchy, essentially, like, owner, manager, assistant manager, trainers, so forth. But I also teach them, and even when I'm on the floor, no one knows I'm the owner unless obviously directly asked, or one of my trainers tells someone that I'm the owner. Otherwise, when someone comes in on their first day, I say, hey, we got two trainers on the floor. It's myself and so for the day. Like, so they associate with me just being one of the trainers, right?
That's good.
Because otherwise, immediately the members come to whoever the higher person is versus valuing the other trainers' advice and so forth. So that is a requirement from our staff as well to do so. So I think that's one of the things too. Like, you're here to serve the members, you're here to serve the team. It's like, no one needs to know you're the manager. What does that do for anyone? Right.
Well, yes. And that humility that you're exhibiting there, I think, is key to servant leadership.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be focused on somebody else if you're focused on yourself. If you want to make sure everybody knows who you are and everybody can come and they can, pay the appropriate homage, oh yeah, oh wow, kiss the ring, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
If you're more concerned with that, then you can't be focused on your team in the way that you're describing, so that they will win.
No, exactly. So, I mean, and that's the whole thing too, is like, I mean, you kind of see who the leaders are when people start going to them for the like, if one of my trainers is coming up to me asking questions and going back to a member to give it, like, they by proxy kind of see that I'm the leader on the floor. They don't necessarily know maybe I'm the owner, but they know that there is some sort of system behind the scenes. But can you explain what the Catalytic leadership is? How was that created?
It actually comes out of a little bit of my story a little further on. When I went to college, I went as a pre-pharmacy major. I thought I had worked in a pharmacy my senior year of high school and thought, this is a great way to invest in other people, to serve others. And so I went as a pre-pharmacy major. Got to my second year and hit organic chemistry. Organic chemistry is designed as the washout point, right? Where they're going to wash out the people who don't need to be in this program. And it works. It washed me right out. I hated it. I was like, this is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. But in my brief chemistry studies, I discovered the power of what's called a catalyst. A catalyst is something that you introduce into a mixture in order to incite or to accelerate significant change or action. And as I thought about that, I'd been a student of leadership for a number of years at that point. And I thought, wow, every great leader that I have ever studied or met or learned from would resonate with that. They're all about significant change or action. And they're all about inciting that. What does it look like for leadership to be catalytic? And that's what I've been researching and studying and writing about and speaking about for about 30 years now.
So how does someone start to, I guess not acquire, but start to
step into that?
Yeah.
Yeah. It starts with your mindset. And this is a choice that you get to make. The one non-negotiable, I say, of catalytic leadership is a teachable spirit. It's one non-negotiable. Yeah, you can have everything else I talk about and not have that, and you're not going to be catalytic. A teachable spirit is a choice. It is a decision that I make every day, Devin. I decide every morning, I want to be the most teachable person in every room I walk into today. I want to be the most teachable person in every meeting I'm in. I want to listen more than I speak. I want to learn from the people around me. Now, sometimes you might learn what not to do. That's okay. That could be valuable. But I want to maintain that teachable spirit, that teachable posture in every environment I'm going to go into. Now, am I perfect at it? No. But that's the goal. That's the center of the bullseye. Starting with that deliberate choice is where catalytic leadership begins. Because that humility and that determination every day that that's going to be the posture of my mindset, that is where you begin as a learner. And if you walk in as a learner, you'll be surprised how much you learn and how much influence you have with the other people in the room.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think that you have to have that sense of humility to realize you don't know what you don't know. Right.
So, right.
You don't need to be a leader or to be a business owner. Like, you don't have to know all of the answers. Right. No. But you do have to know that if you don't know the answer, you either have to find it out yourself, or you need to go ask someone that has already overcame that. Right. And so that's where I think that, a coach or an advisor or a mentor does really play into that. Because I mean, even when we launched our franchise, opening up a business, was already a venture that, kind of had to learn as we went. But then franchising was a whole new space. So I hired a franchise, mentor that had launched his own franchise, right? I didn't care about, certifications, and, it's like, I could read a book too. I want someone that is doing it or has done it. And so it just so happened that my mentor had launched one in the fitness space as well in the 80s and 90s. But I was like, he grew to 400 locations. Obviously, he's going to be able to help me condense my timeline to success. And I'm willing to let him know I don't know these things, right? And go into it with a learning mindset, right? So I think that is a huge aspect of it. Now, what I will, I want to get your opinion on this, because I think that there's this information overload, but implementation underload, right? And so how does that really play into like being a catalytic leader, that is able to have these exponential growths, because we can learn new things and learn the dichotomy of leadership and learn all these things. But if you're not implementing them right, you're not really going to have that growth.
100%. One of the key traits of a catalytic leader is that you have a bias for action. Okay. Information is great. I'm constantly taking in information, right? I love to read. Obviously, you can see I love to read. I love to listen to podcasts. I'm constantly learning and growing through conversations that I have, conferences, whatnot. Information, I'm constantly taking in. But information alone never leads to transformation. Information plus execution leads to transformation. And that's what you're describing. And so the key thing that I work with clients on is, okay, your problem most often is not you lack information. Your problem most often is you're not doing anything with it. It's time to stand up and get moving. It's time to execute. And this is a key trait if you want to be catalytic as a leader.
Definitely. I mean, I remember it's funny, like I had a client that showed up when I was testing the model out at the park before, we opened our facility, and she said, well, isn't it enough I showed up? And I was like, and sometimes I can come back with some stuff pretty quick. And it just right away, I was like, you could go to the library and not read, and then she was just like, oh man. And so she started doing her workout. But it's the same thing. It's like, I could give you the answers. Like for the franchisees, I can give you the blueprint. I can do everything, send you all the information. But if you don't pick up the phone, make the call, or, open the doors, the business isn't going to be successful.
That's exactly right. You got to move. You got to take action.
And that's I think that's the scariest piece, because everything, like, let's say all my successes, I'm telling you exactly how to do it. For you, it's a theory, right? It's not like it's my reality, but it's your theory, right? And until you take action on it, it will always be a theory. You need to test it out. You need to try it. You need to do it for it to become a reality. Otherwise, it will always just be this thought process or this system, you know? So I think that is the huge piece that, you know, that I love that you kind of, you know, described in that. Where has your coaching kind of led you? I know, you know, you've gone across continents and stuff like that. Like what was that journey like?
You know, it's interesting because the first question that I think I had at the beginning was, I understand how to lead in different contexts. And I've worked with leaders, you know, from GovCon space to educational space, from nonprofits to, you know, Fortune 500 companies. But that's in the States. Is that going to work outside of North America? You know? And so as I began to work with clients around the world, what I discovered is that leadership principles are leadership principles. It does not matter the culture. It does not matter the context. The principles are transferable. Now, you got to contextualize them a little bit, to be sure, but the principles hold. And there's not one of the catalytic leadership principles that I talk about in my last book that doesn't hold, no matter where the person is. And I've tested this. I've tried to find the holes in it. But the reality is those principles they work on all 6 continents.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think that, you know, people are people, right?
That's exactly right.
I mean, there are obviously different cultures and so forth, but at the same time, people are people, meaning that leadership is leadership, right?
That's right.
And so that's where I think those concepts and everything really hold, because at the end, just like sales is sales, you know, customer service is customer service. Like it's a principle in that, in a skill in that nature. So I think it does make a ton of sense. I think my worry about, you know, going across different continents would be that cultural factor. But again, when you kind of factor that in maybe a little bit if needed, but at the end of the day, you're talking about something that doesn't really necessarily have a cultural tie.
Right.
You know,
It's important to know illustrations that fit your audience. You know, when you're speaking, it's important not to assume that everybody is like you. And I think that's one danger that happens when we go other places. You know, we just make that assumption. Well, careful. You know, it's good to know who you're talking to, so you can contextualize and communicate to them, not to who you think they should be.
Yeah, and I want to add on to what you said with, like, you know, not to make sure that they're not, you don't think that they're like you, like even in the States. And like there's two aspects to this. Like I've been, you know, to a few different states with, you know, traveling for business and so forth. And being from Los Angeles, it is very fast paced, right? Everything is fast paced. And I remember I went to Montana, beautiful, love the state. But I remember we flew in and it was me and one of the other guys from this mastermind. And we were at this restaurant and the waitress it's almost like it was out of a movie, like talking with each table, but like not just like, hey, do you need anything? It was like full on conversations. And I was like, man, we got to go. Like, you know, and realizing like the lifestyle, everything was just a little bit different. And it was like, wow, like it was almost like not a cultural shock, but kind of a cultural shock in you know, in the same regard. But then also being a business owner, like realizing that your team isn't you. Like you can't hold them to the same standards that you hold yourself, because it is your baby. It is your business. They're never going to work as hard as you.
No.
So you have to also take that with a grain of salt and realize that they're trying to strive to be as good as you, but in your eyes, they'll never do it as good as you could do it. Right. On certain things, your idea as being a leader should be to hire people that can do it better than you. I mean, that's my goal, is to hire people that can do it better than me. Cause you know, that's what scales a business, but also takes a whole ton of work off of your plate. Right. So what I want to dive into off that, like taking work off plate, like how, and I guess this can be kind of a 2-prong question, you know, going into burnout, but also delegation. Like with leadership, how do those things tie into leadership growth? Because that can be a stressful thing, being a leader or being a business owner and kind of having to be forced into that leadership role since you're the owner, the delegation of work, as well as like, burnout.
I want to reinforce something you said a second ago that I think is so important, Devin, and that is that nobody else thinks like you do about the business. And I think as business owners, we have to be very clear about the expectations that we communicate to and express with our team. If we set the expectation, well, you're not as committed as me, you're not doing all the things well, they're not you. They don't own the business. This isn't their baby, as you say. And I think that's important. And where I see often a fast path to burnout is when the expectations are unrealistic of our team members. And it creates anxiety, it creates stress, it creates frustration, because frustration always comes from missed expectations. I expected this and you delivered this, and that gap. Okay, hold on here. Are those the right expectations, or do you need to right size them? That is one way to slow the roll toward burnout, because you're slowing your anxiety, you're lowering the stress. That's one piece of that. Another piece of it is delegation. Nobody else is going to do it like you do it. I hear that all the time. Oh, nobody else, they can't do it like I do it. That's exactly right. No one else is going to do it like you do it, because they don't have the experience. They don't have the investment. They don't have the background that you do, right? You're the one, the expertise enough to start the business. No, they don't have all that. What's your expectation? A mentor of mine said, and I love this. He said, if they can do it 80% as well as you do it, you need to hand it off. First time I heard that, I was like, 80%? That's like a C. I don't want C level work around here. Come on. This is A. We do A level work. Come on. But you know what? He's spot on right. The reality is, if we do not delegate it to them, if they can do it 80% as well as we can, we're not giving them an opportunity to grow like we had. None of us started at A+ level work either. We had to grow into it. And if we want to be a true leader, a catalytic leader, we have to delegate so that they will have the opportunity to grow just like we had. And oh, by the way, it creates margin for you so that you're not overwhelmed and overloaded. When you have margin, you have the capacity for creativity. Creativity lives in margin. If you feel like, well, I don't really have time to be creative, I'm just not creative. It's because you're not allowing margin for it. By delegating, you create margin, and creativity is how leaders solve problems at a high performance level.
And yeah, and like to your 80% thing too, I have heard like a similar thing. And the way I like to explain it as well is like, if you have 100%, right? And let's say there's 10 tasks, or we'll say there's 10 tasks. If you're the one doing all 10 tasks, well, you can only give 10% to each of those tasks. If someone else can give 80% to that task in your eyes, and 80% to the other, and 10 other people, 80% to all the other ones, well, you have 800% versus your 100%.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly.
It's like, at scale, the numbers start to make more sense, right? Yes. So it's like, now you have A++ work, when in reality, you would have been getting F work all the way around, right? So
absolutely,
that's the thing I think with like leaders is like, you get burnt out easily because you're wearing too many hats for too long. And don't get me wrong, I mean, you will have to wear a majority of the hats if you're starting off your business, because you can't train someone or hire someone to do something if you don't know how to do it yourself. For certain things, right? Obviously accounting and stuff like that, you could hire someone straight out the gate. But if you don't have a system in place, well, you can't expect someone to come in and just create your system for you. They're going to be like, this person doesn't know his own business, Right. So that's where, you realize the thing, like, look at your calendar, time block, do whatever you need to do to essentially delegate, because then it frees up your space, like you said, to do the things that actually bring in money, do the things that actually move the needle for the entire company, do the things that you can actually create, the things that you can create, so that you're giving resources and tools to your team.
That's good.
Right. Good. So, I mean, I think that is huge. And I love that you kind of talk on that. Why do you think that most business owners do get burnt out?
Because they don't delegate. Simply. It's because they don't. When you are at the center of the spider web, where every decision has to come to you, where every decision comes across your desk because you haven't delegated, you haven't built a team that can handle making decisions. If that's where you are in your business, congratulations. You are on the road to burnout, and you will get there because that's where that road goes. When you learn to delegate, you learn to delegate not just tasks, not just responsibility, but you learn to delegate authority. I want my team to make decisions. I don't want them to just be task driven. Here's what I mean. When they come to me and they ask me a question, hey, what do you think about this? You know what my number one response is? They can say it with me. What do you think? What do you think? If I wasn't here, what would you do? Because I want them to learn to make the decisions. I want them to learn to think. Now, 80, 90% of the time, their response is going to be spot on. And I'm going to say, yeah, absolutely. Perfect. Go for it. Maybe 10% of the time, they're going to come back with an answer that's just absolutely ludicrous.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when, as a leader, you got to control your face. You got to control it and not give them that look like, what? No, you can't do that. You just got to hold it. You got to control it. And you got to say, okay, well, I see how you could think that. Let me tell you how we do it here. Let me tell you how we do it here. Mm-hmm. What am I doing? I'm coaching them and teaching them how I think so that the next time they don't have to ask the question. Now they know.
No, I like that. I mean, even that's something kind of we implement with our team as well as, when they bring me a question or something like that, often I started off doing the, well, what do you think? And then it came down to like having to say that so many times. It's like, guys, when you bring me a problem or something, I want you to also bring me what your idea of the solution would be.
Yes.
Right or wrong. Right.
Yep.
I just want to see where you would go with it. Right. And even if it is just way outside in a different ballpark of, thought process, like, okay, explain how did you, like, why do you think that? Like, I want to understand, what you went with that. And then from there, I'll kind of coach them on what I would do or what I want to do. But I also want to know how they came to that conclusion, because it has happened where I'm like, man, that's actually not something I thought about.
Right.
And then, and I'm like, that actually makes sense. And I was like, I would have done this. And this is the reason why, but I do like the way you're thinking about it. So let's try it, run it,
And that's the teachable spirit I'm talking about, Evan, right there. Mm-hmm. That's the spirit that says, hey, you know what? The best idea wins. Mm-hmm. If it's mine, if it's yours, whoever it is, best idea wins. That's the humility that as leaders we have to bring to the table.
And letting your team bring those ideas to the table. And if they are good ideas, letting them execute, right? It has more buy-in.
100%. Because they were part of solving it. They were part of crafting the solution. Mm-hmm. They're always going to have more buy-in to a solution or an idea or a project they were part of crafting.
Exactly. And that's the thing, is that a lot of business owners I feel like struggle on is because they think that their ideas need to be the ones that move the company. It's like, realize that you're building a team for a reason. And if your team, exactly right. if your team has contributed to any part of it, like, they're going to have more buy-in, they're going to take more action, they're going to try harder for it to actually work. Right. And even if it's not working, they'll bring you another version of it. Hey, I think if we switch this up, it might work still. It's like,
right.
Try it out. Let's see. Right.
Absolutely. If your idea always wins as the leader, you're not listening enough.
100%. And I think that's adding to your stress, right? Like,
that's exactly right.
Like, because you feel like you need to have all the ideas and all the solutions, when in reality, someone else is like, hey, I have the solution too. I could do this. Perfect. I don't need to think about it now. Like, that's one less stress, one less problem I need to solve. Perfect. High five. Go run it. Right. That's awesome. Something that you've talked about, or I've heard you talk about, is, the clear-minded focus, the calm control, and the confidence. Can you break that down a little bit?
Sure. If you really want to move as a leader into high performance, these are the 3 stages that I think get you there. So often people, when they come to me, they're struggling, they're stuck. They feel like they've grown a business or they've gotten to a certain level in their career, but they're just spinning their wheels.
Mhm.
And it's most often because they don't have what I call clear-minded focus. That understanding not only of where you are, but of where you want to go. Most people can clearly define one of those 2 points,
Mm.
but they struggle with the other one. It's different for different people. Building the bridge from here to there is not the hard part. The hard part is getting clear-minded and focusing on what each one of those points is. Once we have that, then you begin to move into emotional regulation. You begin to move into, how do I establish calm control in my leadership? I talked about the rock in the pond earlier, right? You throw that rock at the water is going to react to the rock exactly in proportion to the size of the rock and the velocity of the throw. The water does not overreact. The water does not underreact. The water exactly proportionally reacts. And then after the event, it resettles. This is the goal for us. That's leading from a place of calm control. When something happens or a conversation is had or somebody does something, how do you react? Are you overreacting? Or are you stuffing it all inside and underreacting? Neither of those is healthy. Learning how to appropriately, proportionally react and then return to the place of calm control, that's a skill. And it's one I think is important to really be catalytic as a leader. As you do those first 2 things and you get the focus that comes with clarity, because clarity is kindness. Brene Brown is right. Clarity is kindness to yourself as well as to other people. You have clarity. You've established this place of calm control where you're able to react appropriately. This gives you confidence, because confidence is born from past experience. As you are building this new version of you, you then can step out with confidence, knowing, hey, I know where I'm at, I know where I'm going, and I know how I want to be on the journey. This gives you the confidence that you need as a leader that can overcome things like imposter syndrome.
100%. Like people like to ask, how do I get over, the imposter syndrome? I'm like, what do you feel an imposter about, right? And like, well, because you do own a business, right? Like you have an LLC, right? You are an entrepreneur. Do you feel an imposter that you're an entrepreneur? Like, because on paper you are. So where's the imposter syndrome coming? Because you don't feel like you're at a Fortune 500 level yet. So now only Fortune 500 levels are entrepreneurs. Like, you got to realize that sometimes the imposter syndrome is self-limiting, and you put that on yourself. No one else, everyone else already associates you as that, right? People already associate you as the leader, as an entrepreneur, as whatever it is, but you don't feel like you're that because you're comparing yourself to other people further along that journey.
That's right. It's the expectations you place on yourself. Whenever I hear somebody doing that and they set those unrealistic bars, I'm just not real yet. I ask the same 3-word question every time, Devin. According to who? According to who? You're holding yourself to a standard. Who set that standard? Where did you get that? You picked it up somewhere. It's not healthy. Right? Let's look at data. Let's look at reality as it is, not as you have convinced yourself it should be.
I agree 100%. I mean, honestly, everything that we talked about, like, there is no question. This is an opinion. This is how it is. And so I'm interested to hear this final question that I like to ask. It's the legacy board, right? So on your legacy board, what would be the one lasting message that you leave for the up and coming generations that you learned along your life's journey?
I think it would be, it's pretty simple. You get to choose. When it comes to the circumstances around us, the things that happen in our lives, we don't always get to choose those. But when it comes to how we respond, how we react, and how we move through those things, you get to choose. Don't complain about what you chose. You get to choose the life you want to live. You get to choose the legacy you want to leave. You get to choose. Don't give away your agency. and move into a victim mindset. Because when you do that, you hurt everybody around you.
It's very true. I love that. I love that. Where can people connect with you at?
You can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active over there. Just look for William C. Attaway. And you can also find me at our website, catalyticleadership.net. That's the hub of everything we do, from the podcast that I host, the coaching that I do, the Facebook group that we host that's for free. That's free. You can join that and learn more about leadership and how to become more catalytic wherever you are.
That is awesome. Guys, that it will be in the show notes. Make sure you guys go check him out. If you guys have a friend, if you guys have a family member, or your significant other is a leader or a business owner, send this episode to them so that it can help them become a catalytic leader and really have that exponential growth that can, scale them, scale their team, and have that positive ripple, that they're instilling so that they become a greater leader than they currently are. But with that being said, guys, I appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys tune in on the next one. Thank you so much, Doctor, for coming on today and honestly just dropping amazing knowledge on leadership, but also the understanding that there is great leadership, there is bad leadership, and you can become a catalytic leader if you're just willing to have a learning mindset.
Devin, thanks for having me. It's been an honor to be here, man.
No negative vibes, only positive thoughts. Cause in the game of life, mindset causes shots. Got my mind on the prize, I can't be distracted. I stay on my grind, no time to be slacking. I hustle hard, I go